Welcome, everyone. I'm Greg Schnell, the Canadian technician, here to host the Market Buzz. This show looks at weekly setups across the U.S. market. Using the tools available on StockCharts, we'll look for long time frame trades. Please subscribe to my articles and Twitter feed and gregschnell.com. Thanks, everybody. Lots going on out here. We're actually testing 1 month highs today here on the S&P 500. We've actually pushed up there, and we're trying to get through the highs of September. It's always difficult. Just watching the market, we've been idling here for 7 days, just kind of wandering. I think on the 17th, we were up around 3009, and here we are. That was one of the values this morning. So we haven't gone too far. We're slightly uptrending with a little bit higher lows all the way through the last couple of weeks, but the market's been tepid is probably a good way to describe it. Again, is the razor wire up here? Because even with Microsoft earnings were wonderful. We had, some outstanding stuff come out of, large cap names like that, and we still can't get pushed out to new highs. So we're going to talk about a little bit more about that. I would call this the begrudging rise. Like literally, we had the biggest earnings day this for this quarter was on Wednesday, I think. And what did we do? We finished marginally down on the day, and just kind of ticked sideways. So nothing great here. So again, what to worry about here? That this comment's been on here for 2 weeks already. The 3,000 things, and we were at 3,002 or something for the low this morning. So we're not getting anywhere fast here. The Fed meeting is next week, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. Gambling stocks, the real deal. I like to watch the gambling stocks. One is because they provide a lot of alpha. They move quickly. They trend pretty well. They're either in favor or out of favor. So we want to go and look on that industry group. I got some clues that might be starting to pop. Checking in on gold. So I mentioned on Wednesday that we should start to look at gold. Well, Thursday we got the pop. Today we're up another $12, and lots of the stocks are starting to move. Now, it's so funny, right? You finally get the move, and then you think, well, am I too late? Well, we're on day 2, so I don't think so. Anyway, Airbus, Caterpillar, CAE Systems, which is training systems for Boeing. That one's been an interesting stock. I pointed it out a long time ago when it first broke out. It's pulled back for a couple of months, and now once we get to the bottom of all of this Boeing stuff, maybe we'll see that stock start to surge. But I want to talk a bit about Tesla. They had some great earnings, and everybody's wondering if it could be real. They're going to start rolling out cars in China, so lots going on here. Anyway, it's been an interesting stock. It was down at support, and sure enough, it found a bounce. So we'll look in on that. Amazon, I saw in my Twitter feed, this is the 23rd time Amazon has gapped down 6 or 7% on earnings. So 23rd time. And again, what the big thing is on that company, I think they're, if you're in a city that doesn't usually have Amazon, all of a sudden they're building a massive warehouse next door to you, and it's so they can do same day shipping. We still have all of the drone technology. If you go look at Ballard Power, BLDP, that's an interesting stock. They have a lot of drone delivery stuff that runs on hydrogen, and so it's quiet, and it can lift up to 20 to 55 pounds. So, you could get your groceries by drone here pretty quick, lowers their labor costs. They could ship it in an hour. It's going to get pretty fast in a world like that. So anyway, I wouldn't throw this stuff out. Snap is another stock that's been starting to perform. I've got one mystery stock right at the end that I want to show you. It is a sweet looking chart. And hopefully with all of that, we'll have an action-packed little bit here. So let's get going. Okay, over to the intraday view. Let's just update this and what we got here. Okay, so I'm going to just hide this my favorites bar, and the only reason is so I get a little more screen real estate. Okay, so here we go. So here's the intraday view, and you can see, if we zoom in, we're just trying to get up above this level here. This is roughly 3015 on the S&P 500. But you can see, we came off the lows, and then really, we were at 298 on the SPY, and now we're at 301. So, uh, albeit it's up 1% or something, it's not up um, a ton. And you can see on the NASDAQ, it's even flatter. We haven't even had that upsloping tilt. We've been just kind of dragging sideways. I will say that with Amazon's overnight news really depressing, this thing has popped right back up and looks just fine. When I look in on the SPY here, just the wider view, we had this August high, the September high, October high, and I do a whole bunch of work on market breadth and market internals. Just to give you a relative scale, like when we came off this May low, we had, a huge surge in stocks, over a certain percentage level or whatever, and you could pick whichever ones you want. If you make the hurdle really low, all of them will jump. If you make the hurdle really high, only you'll get a more restricted reading. But when I ran this, like, you get a huge number. Well, the problem is right now, after all the way through this surge, we haven't, and I do it a week at a time, how many stocks this week made a big surge. And we had the same number as last week. So nothing really great. And again, um, it was the same sort of levels in here and the same sort of levels in here. So it's begrudging. It's very humbling that we can't find a lot of momentum kind of surging this market forward and really getting buyers turned on. The other thing I want to point out here is this is the SPY, this is the QQQ. Look at the volume profile here. There is absolutely, tiny interest. The last 2 days, we can take it back all the way into, I think this might have been around the July lows, but we're at low volumes for the year here, and we're in the middle of earnings season. So much for for optimism on earnings. Look at the volume profile on all of these charts. Nobody's interested in buying this. Now, I will say the one thing that happened yesterday for the first time in a week and a half or whatever was that we finally had an up day with higher volume than the prior day. But you can also see lower high, lower high, lower high, and now we're wondering if we could make a higher high. So we're still in this zone of terror. We do have rising lows and we do have lower highs in momentum. So one of these days we'll break out one way or the other. Fourth quarter is seasonally bullish. So it's hard to argue against that. That's always one of the things you want to remember. The second component of that seasonally bullish discussion is, we're now in a period where the Fed's lowering interest rates. Last time we did that was '07. So we're kind of watching and learning to see how weak things are. Now, the Fed started to put a whole bunch of money into the repo market. I think it was 100 billion this month already. So there's some stuff that's not quite working well, and you might, I think Jay Powell talked about it just being the plumbing, but we have a few issues in the background here that are percolating. So anyway, I'm going to keep watching my momentum indicators, my breadth indicators, see if they get better. My early breadth indicators are now leaning 2/3 favorable, 1/3 not. So that's better, but normally we'd see that in the first week or two. Here we are, we're 3 or 4 weeks off the low. If we just go back here, the low was early October. We're at the end of the month, and we just haven't seen any sort of real positive move. So anyway, that's one of the reasons I'm still a little bit puck shy about this market. Um, just to explain this is the SPY compared to the SPX. And the reason that this isn't a charting error. It's that the SPY includes the dividends and the SPX does not. So you'll see this uptrend, and you see the same thing if you were to compare the QQQ to the NASDAQ. And obviously it wouldn't be as high a slope because they don't pay as high a dividend on the NASDAQ typically. But again, that uptrend compared to the index for the SPY is all dividend related. Okay. Now let's jump into some of the other stocks I mentioned. And one of them was gambling. And the reason I want to talk about this particular group, the big names are kind of on the second page here, but what we start to see here, you can see this gentle, subtle downtrend. And if we were going to break out, one of the things that's happened here is the 200 or the 40-week moving average has gone flat. This week we have both the 40-week turned up and the moving average turned up, the 10-week moving up, and we're trying to push back above here. So just a little conditional analysis, search for an uptrending 40 week and uptrending 10 week that wasn't uptrending 2 weeks ago. And, are we above both of those lines? And you'll get a list of stocks. So that it's a nice place to look for change. Anyway, here we have this full stochastic is starting to break out to the upside, and you have a downtrend here in momentum that's about 6 months long. That's kind of my minimum that I want to see, but it also goes all the way back to here, and we're just starting to break out. So if this can start to rise above zero, what would be the clue there? When we were back in this big positive phase for 3 years, we were above zero. We haven't been able to get there for over a year. So if this stock, Boyd Gaming, could start to move, this is just an interesting place on the chart where we're finally getting some simple, very simple scan work that can point us to something that might be starting to work. Here's Caesars Entertainment Group. And what we see here is it's gone sideways for a while here. I don't know if there's a buyout or if they've improved, and this is somebody kind of holding the stock at a certain level. I didn't take the time to research it yet, but the one thing that I would say is, this is typically a buyout or something. So want to be very careful here. But if this is in fact just somebody holding the stock, and you can see it on big institutions when they want to hold something sideways, even in here, they held it sideways for 3 or 4 months and then let it pop. Century Institution or Century Casinos. This one's been downtrending, not one I like yet, and I just let it bottom. No reason to rush in. There's some other charts in this group that look better. Here's Churchill Downs, and you can see really nice upslope. It's not moving fast, but there's nothing wrong with this. It went from 80 to 140 this year, so you're still having a great year, up 50% from year end. And I know a lot of stocks, because the December year end was very close, started to run up here. So anyway, a 50% move, even if you take off the first half, it's moved up from 110 to 130. So nice move. Contagious Gaming doesn't look like any disease I want to get. Empire Resorts, this one is trending down, but look at how it's locked in a sideways move here for a little while. Then we got Full House Resorts. This one's starting to turn up and wouldn't take much to break out to new 2019 highs. Again, same sort of thing. And you got the 10-week moving above the 40-week, another bullish condition. PPO moving above zero for the first time, after the big downturn. So these charts are starting to shape up. Great Canadian Gaming isn't exactly great yet. Sorry, hit the button too hard. But you can see a downslope here in momentum. If we start to break through that, I want to start to pay attention there again. And we don't have the criteria where the stock is, both moving averages are starting to improve. Iocun Group, don't know this one, but anyway, I don't think you want to know it. International Game Tech, this one's been jogging sideways for about 6 months. Isn't gaining any weight yet, but wouldn't take much for all of a sudden this to be above both moving averages, break out to new 6-month highs. You're right at zero, and if it doesn't do that, I don't want to play. Getting over into Entertain Group, this one's just starting to look very close at new 52-week highs. So really an interesting stock. PPO, or sorry, the Scooter ranking is getting up into this high group, and it sat up here for over a year. So I wouldn't want to ignore this stock just yet. These gaming numbers are starting to improve. And again, PPO just moving above zero, another simple clue. Las Vegas Sands, this one's had a nice downtrend here. Had a really good push this week of up 6%. PPO was above zero, just gently pulled back below, and looks like it wants to start to rise up again. Had a huge volume candle on options expiration. So somebody put some big bets into this park just 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago. And what we want to watch for now is, does this start to break out? There's a little downtrend in momentum here that started to change. We're above both moving averages. They're both tilting up. PPO starting to head above zero. What's not to like? MGM Grand Resorts jogging sideways for the better part of a year, pulling down towards the zero level, and it looks like it wants to start to pull back here. This is a little bit what the gold daily chart's been doing. Anyway, starting to head up here, and again, moving averages are not quite turned up yet, but any sort of move next week would probably change that chart. Melco Resorts grinding sideways here, kind of volatile in here, but it's pushing back above, both moving averages rising, and you got a downslope in momentum. Nanotech Entertainment, Nothing. Let's just leave that. Penn National Gaming. This one's starting to do the same thing as Entertain. You're about a 6 month high. PPO trend line was down, just went sideways for a while, migrating. And now all of a sudden we're starting to turn up and get some separation on the lines, volumes increasing. There's a lot going on here that I like. Scientific Gaming Corp, same issue, starting to turn up. The Stars Group, this one had a big announcement a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember what it was, but has stalled since then, but doesn't mean ignore it. Wind Group, um, jogging down here, but all of a sudden starting to push back up for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Again, just below zero. This would be a significantly higher low. And again, if these things get going on their big runs, they can be very profitable. Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. We're going to come back and talk about gold, and more gold. And then when we finish that, we're going to jump into 10 stocks that just are worthy of a discussion today. Thanks.
Today's market volatility provides savvy traders and active investors with an abundance of profitable opportunities. At the Traders Expo Las Vegas, November 7th through 9th, over 75 of the most respected traders in the world, including Dennis Gartman, Tom Sosnoff, Todd Gordon, and Tom DeMark, will explain how they're adapting their strategies and share the specific trading opportunities they've identified in equities, options, forex, futures, cryptocurrencies, and more. Claim your free pass to join them at tradersexpo.com.
Okay, and we're back. Here is we're going to start looking at the gold charts. And what I did was I have this whole gold chart list. Let's just go summary look at it first. Whoops. And what happens on this summary list? Again, if you make an industry group, a group of all of the stocks you like, or all of the stocks in an industry group, and then you could go weed them out if you want, or you can make a list above $5, below $5, whatever your trading style is, of stuff you want to trade, and then keep them in industry group lists. If you look here, I have all kinds of different industry group lists. So they all start with a number, and then I have an A just to help keep them organized alphabetically, and then asset brokers, investment bankers. And if you go down here, like here as an example is B, but this is US banks. Which is different than banks financial. So I've kept it in the banking area, but I can change the title. Anyway, I've set up gold in this group, and if we go down to my gold space here, you'll see I had gold stocks to trade in 2018, gold stocks to trade in 2019, bullish percent listed, only has 25 stocks. So you can add or subtract or set them up any way you like. By the way, this forestry group is looking pretty great. While we're here. Okay, so let's get back into 10 per page. So what I've done is I've sorted them in the order of the strongest looking charts first, based on the scooter ranking. And so what happens is, as an ETF, this ring ETF is performing better than, the vast majority of the ETFs out there, even with a 4-week pullback. And again, we use the 200-day moving average, 125-day rate of change, all that kind of stuff. So with this big acceleration in here, this is holding up near the highs, but you can see on the full stow, it's actually been weakening slightly. If it starts to turn up here, that's a very positive bounce. And I've talked about that many times. But when you get a full stochastic on a weekly chart that's turning up around the 50 level, that's just bullish. And you want to be on top of that, especially when the PPO is above zero. We have that condition here. And again, coming up, making a wave down and starting to head back higher. So GDX, you can just see here, we're barely above last week. We're not even above 2-week highs here on this one, but it wouldn't take much to start getting going. And if that was to start to break out, this would be a nice move. Now, that's just another ETF's junior silvers, but you can see they're all starting to turn up here. And again, look at the volume of interest that came in once this started to rock. So I don't know that this is over yet. I feel like this was just the first wave. It needed to consolidate, and we're kind of there. Again, roughly 8 weeks, and a friend Corey Mitchell pointed that out to me on the weekend. Another CMT that's pretty active trader. Okay, so GDXJ here is starting to cycle back up. A lot of these ETFs have popped to the top because I ranked it by scooter ranking, and gold has been one of the better ones. So here's Sprott Physical Silver. This one really popped up nicely, up 3% this week. Centerra Gold trying to break out to new 52-week highs. The Silver Trust here had pulled back, nice big candle this week, and again you had these increasing volatility, just suggesting that perhaps the price was getting a little bit ahead. When the average volume is 50 million and it does 200 million, that might be a clue that something's getting a little bit overbought. Savanier Gold, this one's really nice. Look at this nice move higher. It's a $6 stock, or 7 today, and is probably looking like it wants to definitely change trend here, keep continuing higher. Physical silver shares, same idea. So we see all of these ETFs covering the same thing. I'm going to try and scan over them. Looking in on here, Silver Corp Metals, this stock had been up, pulled back nicely. This was $3 to 6, so you got a 100% move, you got a 50% retracement. Not a bad place to start to look. Anglo Gold Ashanti, this one is starting to break out to new highs here, trying to give it a lift. American Silver Corp, same thing, pulled back, wants to start to reverse. Here's SLVO, silver shares with a covered call ETN note, and this is trying to push above its prior high already. So this is a nice surge. Eldorado Gold Corp pulled back, trying to get going here. But again, a lot of these stocks went 5 to 12 back a few bucks. Nothing wrong with that. Just a general correction. First Majestic Silver wobbling in here for 3 or 4 months, but this would be a nice stock. Full stochastic bouncing at 50%. All of these are starting to get interesting. Kinross Gold, pulling up and then pulling back just slightly here. Not a bad place to look. This Wesdome Gold Mines, I have a couple of people I chat with regularly. This is one of their favorite stocks. I mentioned it last week in my Greg Schnell .com newsletter that went out to members. And the one thing to keep track of on all of these gold stocks, again, they've been beaten up for years. So there's been a lot of change in the industry. So don't take a low price as being a nothing stock. Anyway, this one was up 10% last week, up 6% this week, continues to climb. First Majestic Silver, this one's also looking like it wants to start turning up again. Another ETF. So the point I want to make on all of these is the stocks are starting to move, and these U.S. names, American Eagle, Agnico Eagle, really a nice pop up, almost 10% so far. Yamana Gold finally breaking out here. This was up 11% this week. Nova Gold Resources up 6% this week. Anyway, when you look through here, Detour Gold, just hovering in this tight range here. If it's going to start to pop, this one went 1250 to 25, so it's up 50%, pulled back whatever 25% or 20%. Not a bad place. North American Palladium, this one got bought out or something. It's been going sideways for 3 or 4 weeks. Okay, Yamana Gold, already mentioned it on the US side, another ETF. But when you get into these names, I think a lot of the charts are setting up nicely, and there's no reason. You can set your stop relatively close here, just this week's low, and if it takes it out, you're out. But lots of reasons to start to like these big pushes starting to go on. Alistair Gold, this one's been downtrending for a few weeks now. And Kinross, or sorry, not Kinross, Kirkland Lake was a big name before. It's dropped in the ranking, so be careful when they've dropped so much more. Something might be changing in the stock. And this Sabina Silver, this one was trying to push up. If it can start to turn up here, I think you always, on each thrust, you want to be aware of what's still working, and try not to stay with the old names that were working last year or last spring. Lee Gold Mining, this is starting to rock. Okay, so again, I mentioned it on the Wednesday show. I mentioned it I mentioned Wesdome last week in my article. We're only at it's been a couple of days here where it's pushed out of a 2-week range. We're still trying to break through the 1-month highs, but the charts are setting up, and at least if when the whole group is setting up so nicely, be aware. The one thing I will say is right after the US dollar broke down last week, it's been climbing slowly every day this week. Okay, I'm going to go jump over here, and I want to go through a few charts together with you. So here's EADSY, which happens to be Airbus, and here's Boeing. Let's just match those off. And what we see on these charts, Airbus has been performing marginally better. I mean, the scale goes 32 to 34. Let's not get too excited, but that's over the last couple of weeks, so it's up nicely. So this chart's starting to accelerate. It's got a nice positive slope on its 200-day moving average, whereas Boeing continues to have a sideways slope. Anyway, one of my friends out there asked me to check on this chart, and I mean, it looks great. Everything about it is nice here. Um, I still wouldn't throw Boeing away if they start to announce that the planes are going to fly in January or May or whatever. Their backlog is so massive, and they'll fix what needs to be fixed. So I wouldn't give up on Boeing just yet. It might break down below support here, but Airbus looks very nicely set up. PPO bouncing right above zero on the weekly. That's just so bullish. Okay, go look at the CAE, and I'm going to put in Caterpillar, not that they're related, but the CAE is the Boeing training systems or training systems for airplanes, and you get a cockpit replicator built, and then you try to fly the plane. So that's CAE. Anyway, it's been moving up nicely recently, and you can see Caterpillar doing the same. So this stock surged on the news that Boeing had some problems out there, so training would be required. Well, it ran up. Now it's pulled back gently, filled the gap, and it looks like it's ready to start to take off again. We're at, roughly 1 month highs, and in another 50 cents, we'd be at 3 month highs again. So starting to look nice. The PPO has pulled back, and it looks ready to pop here. Caterpillar continues to try and climb, and it's just a Dow 30 stock, and everybody keeps wanting to pile into it. But Scooter Ranking said stay away for a long period of time. Unless the PPO really starts to change, that would be a problem. Now, looking at Caterpillar, you can just see, this was a top performing stock, then it became a bottom performing stock. The Scooter Ranking told you that. It's still oscillating. We don't have a real clear buy signal here. We've come up to test this zero level before many, many times, but any sort of a breakout to a new high in momentum, and I would want to be a buyer. CAE trying to bounce off the 40-week moving average after pulling back. PPO hasn't started to turn up on the weekly chart yet. The full stochastic has given us a tick up, so that's a buy signal above its signal line. Again, even if you let it take out the prior high, you're not going to be too far behind here. But if you thought that over the next 3 years or something, Boeing was going to do a lot more, or airlines were going to do a lot more pilot training on all of these features, might be an interesting place to look. Okay, running short on time, so I'm going to quickly put in, I'm going to quickly put in Amazon and Microsoft, two large caps. And you can see Amazon bouncing down. Again, I wouldn't give up on this stock. Microsoft, considering it had such great earnings, still having trouble breaking out to new highs. So again, begrudgingly, here's Amazon bouncing off support. Both charts look okay to me. I think this is the more interesting buy for me because I could set my stop nice and close. On Microsoft, to me, it would have to break out if you don't already have a position. Okay, one of the charts that I think is just golden that I got to show you is Celgene. And doesn't look like much here, but check out this chart. Just gently rising up here, and then look at this big base it's built over 2 years, and it looks like it's ready to start accelerating. So I think that's an interesting chart to end for the week on. Take a look at it over the weekend. I do want to say thank you for taking the time to join me on Market Buzz. Market Buzz airs live on Wednesdays and Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time on StockCharts TV. I do have my founder sale starting on gregschnell.com. If you go to the homepage and sign up, that'll get you in. Go to the private members tab to actually start a subscription. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Have a good weekend.